Hey everybody, what's up? I thought I'd do this video. I've been trying to do it for a while, but every time I've been doing it, especially on the way to work or the way home, just not as good. So I thought I'd just come out and talk about it here. You know, over the past 48 hours, you know, a lot of the wrestling world, if not the wrestling fan base, particularly those that are part of the WWE universe, are not too thrilled with the WWE as we speak. Mainly due to the fact that to them, they just don't get it. The WWE just does not understand what they got. You know, they just don't get their fan base. They really don't. They don't get basically what the fans want, and what the fans want is for them to give them something that's going to be appealing, something that's going to get them to tune in and say, "I want to see more of this. I want to see more of that." But they just don't do it. They just don't get it. And I hear people like the Schleg Daddy, and I apologize for the snoring. That's my dog. She snores when she sleeps. um, you know, you got people like the Schleg Daddy, Deluxe Man, Solo Monster, Don Tony, Kevin Castle. Many insiders and critics inside the business, and all basically have said similar stuff. And one of the constant things that they have all said and agreed upon is one, the WWE just doesn't get it, and that they, more specifically Vince McMahon, is not with the times or is not up to speed about what people want. So, it's hurting them in the long run. It's hurting them in the long run. And, this past Sunday was a good example of it. I mean, I've seen Survivor Series. Survivor Series is one of my primary favorite pay per views. As a matter of fact, before I started regular recording WrestleMania, Survivor Series was one of my main pay per views that I at least wanted to order once a year. And I have seen some decent Survivor Series pay per views, even if they only had one, two, or three Survivor Series matches, traditional ones, and everything else was singles or tag or whatever. I was okay with that. I was okay with that. But, you know, this past Sunday, I have to agree, was probably the worst booked Survivor Series in history. And again, it's because I think WWE just doesn't get it or they just don't understand. I mean, here's what I'm talking about. You give us two traditional Survivor Series tag matches, and yet you don't tell us who's going to be on the team. You don't. I mean, essentially, how people are going to look back at these two matches, and of course, one of them being on the kickoff show, the way people are going to look back at this is you essentially had a put together team, which is going to be basically known as maybe Team Neville or Team Dudley, consisting of Neville, the Dudley Boys, Titus O'Neil, and Goldust, going up against a team, basically, I guess you could say, is Team Cosmic or Team Stardust, which consists of The Miz, Bo Neville, The Ascension, and Stardust. Now, true, they did give some. They did try to. Now, true, they did use this pre-show Survivor Series match to try to revitalize the whole Goldust Stardust rivalry feud. So that was good. I'll give them that. But still, if you're gonna put a Survivor Series, even if it's put together, a Survivor Series traditional match, why not just put it on the pay-per-view? I don't get that. Anyway, if that's not enough, the other one was put together too, and this Survivor Series match was on the main show, and nobody knew who was going to be in it. I mean, they pretty much knew that. Okay, some people pretty much had an idea who might be in it, but they didn't know who the members of the team consisted of. And yet you have Team New Day, which apparently that's what they're going to be called, of Sheamus, Barrett, and the New Day. Or they're going to call it Team Sheamus because Sheamus is the champion now, and I'll get into that in a moment. Against Team Ryback? I don't know. I mean, Ryback, Usos, Lucha Dragons, I don't know. And again, if that's not all, the Survivor Series itself was not booked correctly. It just wasn't. I mean, I think the one thing that disappointed fans more than anything wasn't the Undertaker's match. I know some people have mixed reactions on that, but I thought it was okay. It wasn't the Undertaker's match. It was mainly the fact that you took, and I think this is one of the main reasons I'm upset about this. You took this tournament, which you ran for about 2 weeks on Raw, and SmackDown, and you essentially threw it away. You threw it under the bus just to have the winner of the tournament get cashed in on by Sheamus, who many fans and many critics felt should not have successfully cashed in and lost. Actually, should have went bankrupt, if you know what I mean. To have that person lose to Sheamus in a cash-in, someone that nobody feels should even be near the WWE World Title picture. And yet, for some odd reason, fans prefer him as champion. In fact, they cheered him coming in out of the crowd, cashing in and becoming champion over Roman Reigns. And the WWE's reasoning for this? Mainly because of the fact that they want to build Roman up to the point that when he does win the title back, fans are cheering and not booing. Seriously? That's your reasoning? So that fans cheer him and they don't boo him? What does Vince McMahon, the main creative and booking staff of WWE's main shows and pay-per-views, do not get? Huh? What do they not get? We are in essentially what I like to call the IWC / wrestlers / wrestling era. And what that means is basically we are in a time frame right now where fans, whether they're part of the WWE universe or general overall fans, prefer someone that can go in that ring, have 30 to 40 minute, 50-minute long matches, give so many false finishes, do so many high spots, give technical rest. Basically, they want somebody that, like I said, could go in that ring and also they can get behind and support and basically has the whole total package, if you know what I mean. Not muscle-wise, but anything, but someone they can relate to mainly. And yet WWE just doesn't get that. And one of their excuses for why they haven't brought Daniel Bryan back? Oh, we don't want him, according to numerous sources and insiders. Oh, WWE doesn't want him interfering with the possible Roman Reigns getting the championship again. They don't want history to repeat itself. Again, what part of that does WWE not get? It doesn't matter when Roman wins the title back. It doesn't matter if he wins it back next month at TLC. Doesn't matter if he wins it back at the Rumble or at Fastlane. You bring Daniel Bryan back, fans are going to want him over Roman, no matter what. Again, I just don't get that about the WWE. I don't get where they don't understand that. I mean, this is why fans hated on them when CM Punk was one of the longest reigning champions. It wasn't because he wasn't champion. He was. And despite turning him heel, he still got a positive reaction. And why? Because he was a legit pro wrestler. He could go in that ring. And again, he was part of this whole IWC wrestlers wrestling era. Basically, he was what fans wanted. Someone they could relate to. It's the same, believe it or not, with Dean Ambrose and Seth Rollins. Yeah, you could make Seth Rollins up to be a big, major top heel, and that's great. He was getting good at that role. His championship reign may not have been so good, but he was getting good at being the top heel. He was being entertaining. And oh, guess what? Fans were getting behind him because they could relate to him. I mean, do you not think fans are not going to get behind someone like Samoa Joe despite that he's big and everything? Or Finn Balor when you bring them up? Of course they are. And here's why. Because they can go in that ring. They can. Why do you think they're behind Kevin Owens? He can go in that ring despite his size. Guys like him and Joe are legit pro wrestlers. That's what they want. They want someone they can relate to. And I know you're thinking, I know some of you are going to say, well, basically you're saying they just want someone that's like them. They can live vicariously through. And that is true. And can you blame them? A lot of people, even like myself, know, oh, we'll never be able to do what these guys do. We'll never be able to compete in that ring. But and that is why people get behind guys like a Daniel Bryan, a CM Punk, a Kevin Owens, a Seth Rollins, a Dean Ambrose, a Samoa Joe, a Finn Balor, a Sami Zayn. Because we live vicariously through them. And yet the WWE just does not get it. They are hell bent on trying to push guys that we do not want, that, well, we not necessarily saying we do not want, but guys that we just feel are not ready for that spot, or we feel are better off in an upper mid-card level being a tag champ or an intercontinental or a US champ. And that's it. We don't, we don't, we overall as the wrestling fans, we don't feel that they're ready for that yet. I mean, me, honestly, if WWE could do something interesting with Roman as champion down the line, then great. I mean, Roman could put on some good matches if he's in there with the right people. The right people can bring the best out of Roman. The same thing with John Cena. John Cena's in the ring with the right people to bring out the best in each other. The point is, despite how we feel, how we feel about what WWE is doing, they just don't get it. And I know, WWE could come out on their own, although WWE is probably thinking on their own, oh, well, these fans want Daniel Bryan as the champion and all that, and yet they call us hypocrites because we want to push John Cena and Randy Orton over and over again. We want to continue pushing, as Strike Daddy calls them, the Breakfast Club, over and over and over again, and yet they want Daniel Bryan? Again, WWE doesn't get it. We're in an era, in a time frame right now, where people want a legit pro wrestler despite who they may be, despite how big they are, or how much they weigh, or anything, but they want somebody that can go in that ring and give them the kind of matches that they were used to seeing them give them on the indie scene or in places like ROH and CZW, TNA, GFW, whatever you want to call it, New Japan, whatever you want to, wherever they've been. They want to see those kind of matches brought over, which is why they tune into NXT, because in a sense they get a blending of that style. They get a blending of the style they've seen on the indies and internationally in with the style that's being taught to these men and women in the performance center, if you will. But still, it's because they want that style, and it's because they've been so used to that. They've been so, how do I put it? What's the word I'm looking for? We've been so I guess, what's the word? What's the word I'm looking for? I used it earlier when I tried doing these videos. I can't even think of it. I think we've just become so established to what we've been seeing on the indies, that we accept. We're basically acceptable of that more than anything. We're more accepting of that style, and we're so used to it. We've become accustomed to it that we want to see that style come over and be used in the WWE. We want to see those kind of matches. We want to see those kind of people. And yet the WWE just doesn't get it. You know, I think sometimes Vince McMahon, if he's in his final years as the chairman before he retires, my honest opinion, I think he just wants to relive his glory years. I think he wants to relive the Federation years one more time. Yet he doesn't realize we're in a medium, we're in an era, we're in a time right now where everything's black and white, everything's gray. It's not red and blue anymore. It's not like you cannot. It's not red and blue anymore where you can define who the bad guys are and who the good guys are. You know, he just, I just feel that's what he's trying to do, and he just doesn't get we're not in that time frame anymore. We're in a time frame now to where you got to give us what we want and who we want, because we may not be in the business or within the business, but we have an idea of what we want to see because of, you have people tuning into Lucha Underground, and heck, when it first season ended, demanding Lucha Underground come back, and it has, and it will be, because of what they saw there. That basically Lucha Underground is what they want to see, kind of brought into with WWE in a way. Why do you think people still support TNA? Because it's more about the in-ring product at times, along with some good storylines if they get good storylines. I mean, I just don't think WWE gets it. And yes, in a sense, the UFC and the MMA world has been an influence on the fan base to be to grow accustomed to that, to be intrigued by that. You know, to be set in that way. But again, WWE just doesn't understand or get it. I know those in NXT running the NXT show and booking and creating it, and as well as maybe Triple H, kind of get it. But those on the main roster, along with Vince McMahon and Kevin Dunn, they don't. And quite honestly, I don't think they ever will until Vince McMahon steps down. And I've said this before, I'll say it again. What they need to do, at least for 3 months, especially going into WrestleMania, bring the NXT creative team and booking team up. Let them run the prime shows, the main roster shows. Let them book and create. And I can almost promise and guarantee you'll see a huge change in momentum, and maybe even viewership will go up and storylines will be even better. So, but again, as far as I'm concerned, I think everybody will agree with this. WWE, they just don't get it.